What if I told you one burger has 4 days worth of saturated fat, and another packs enough sodium to blow your daily limit before you even touch the fries? These aren't just meals, they're engineered health bombs. The American Heart Association says to keep saturated fat under 13 grams and sodium under 2,300 milligrams a day. Some of these burgers smash those numbers in one sitting. And that's no accident. Billion-dollar chains design them this way, stacking fat, salt, and sugar to keep you hooked. Today, we're naming the 5 most dangerous burgers in America. Let's start with the absolute worst offender on our list, Chili's Bacon Rancher Burger. This isn't just a burger, it's a cardiovascular event waiting to happen, wrapped in bacon and served with a smile. Here are the numbers that should terrify you: 1,690 calories, 49 grams of saturated fat, and 2,720 milligrams of sodium. Let me put that in perspective for you. The saturated fat alone is nearly 4 times your daily limit. 4 times. That means if you eat this burger, you've consumed enough artery-clogging fat to last you until Thursday. But here's what Chili's doesn't want you to realize. This single menu item contains more saturated fat than you'd get from eating 12 strips of bacon, 6 eggs, and a stick of butter, combined. And they're marketing it as a hearty meal for hearty appetites. The sodium situation is equally horrifying. At 2,720 milligrams, you're getting more salt than you should consume in an entire day, plus an extra 400 milligrams, just for good measure. That's like eating 68 potato chips worth of sodium in one sitting. Your kidneys are crying just thinking about it. Now, you might be thinking, come on, it's just one meal. How bad can it be? Well, let me tell you what happens to your body when you consume this monstrosity. Within 30 minutes, your blood pressure starts to spike from the sodium overload. Your arteries begin to stiffen as they try to process the massive influx of saturated fat. Your liver goes into overdrive, trying to manage the cholesterol bomb you just detonated in your digestive system. But here's the really insidious part. Chili's knows exactly what they're doing. They've engineered this burger to hit every pleasure center in your brain. The combination of fat, salt, and protein creates an almost addictive response that makes you crave more. It's not an accident that it tastes so good. It's food science, weaponized against your willpower. And the marketing? Pure genius in its deception. They call it the Bacon Rancher. Sounds wholesome, right? Like something a cowboy might eat after a hard day's work. They don't call it the Heart Attack Special or the Arterial Blockage Deluxe, even though that would be more accurate. The portion size is another psychological trick. They've normalized the idea that a burger should be the size of a small pizza. When did we decide that a single sandwich should contain enough calories for an entire day? When did value become synonymous with enough food to feed a linebacker? But here's what really gets me. They serve this with a straight face to families. Parents order this thinking they're treating themselves to something special, not realizing they're essentially playing Russian roulette with their cardiovascular system. And the kids watching? They're learning that this is what normal food looks like. The Bacon Rancher isn't just dangerous because of what it contains. It's dangerous because of what it represents. It's the culmination of decades of supersizing, of convincing Americans that more is always better, that we deserve to indulge without consequences. Coming in at number 2 is Applebee's Quesadilla Burger, and if you thought combining Mexican and American cuisine was a good idea, wait until you see what it does to your arteries. This Frankenstein creation clocks in at approximately 1,620 calories, with somewhere between 38 and 41 grams of saturated fat, and a staggering 3,000 milligrams of sodium. Yes, you heard that right, 3,000 milligrams. That's 30% more sodium than you should consume in an entire day, packed into one meal. But here's what makes this burger particularly insidious. It's marketed as fusion cuisine. Applebee's wants you to think you're getting something creative, something innovative. What you're actually getting is 2 different ways to destroy your cardiovascular system, combined into one convenient package. Let's break down what's actually happening here. They take a burger, already a high-fat, high-sodium proposition, and then wrap it in a quesadilla. It's like they looked at a regular burger and thought, you know what this needs? More cheese, more carbs, and more ways to deliver saturated fat directly to your bloodstream. The sodium content is where this burger really shows its true colors. At 3,000 milligrams, you're consuming the equivalent of eating 75 potato chips worth of salt. Your body isn't designed to process that much sodium at once. Your kidneys go into panic mode, your blood pressure spikes, and your cardiovascular system starts working overtime just to keep you alive. But here's the psychological trick Applebee's is playing on you. They've made it shareable. The marketing suggests this is something you can split with a friend or family member. But even if you eat half of this monstrosity, you're still consuming 1,500 milligrams of sodium and nearly 20 grams of saturated fat. That's still more than a full day's worth of saturated fat in half a burger. And let's talk about the cultural implications here. This burger represents everything wrong with American food culture. We've taken two perfectly fine cuisines, American burgers and Mexican quesadillas, and bastardized them both in the name of innovation. It's not fusion, it's confusion. It's not creative, it's destructive. The portion size is another mind game. When you see this thing arrive at your table, your brain doesn't register danger, it registers value. You think you're getting your money's worth because it's physically large. But what you're really getting is a one-way ticket to cardiovascular disease, served on a plate that requires two hands to lift. But here's what really bothers me about this burger. It's targeted at families. Applebee's markets itself as a family restaurant, a place where you take your kids for a nice meal. And then they serve you something that contains enough sodium to pickle a small animal. What message are we sending to the next generation about what constitutes normal food? The cooking process makes it even worse. Because it's wrapped in a quesadilla, all those fats and oils get trapped inside, creating a concentrated pocket of cardiovascular destruction. It's like they've engineered the perfect delivery system for artery-clogging ingredients. And the price? They charge premium prices for this nutritional nightmare. You're literally paying extra for the privilege of damaging your health. It's like paying someone to punch you in the face, except the damage is invisible and takes years to fully manifest. Thought those first two were bad? The next ones wear names like Monster for a reason. These aren't accidents. They're business decisions. Bigger patties, more fat, more salt. Profits up, your health down. The next three burgers prove some chains don't even bother pretending to care anymore. At number 3, we have Red Robin's Monster Burger. And the name should be your first clue that you're about to make a terrible decision. But here's the thing about Red Robin. They've managed to make a monster burger that's somehow less monstrous than the competition, which tells you everything you need to know about the state of American fast food. The numbers: 1,300 calories, 38 grams of saturated fat, and 2,520 milligrams of sodium. Now, compared to our first two entries, this almost looks reasonable. Almost. But let's put this in perspective. You're still looking at nearly 3 times your daily saturated fat limit and more sodium than you should consume in 24 hours. But here's what makes Red Robin particularly devious. They've positioned themselves as the better burger chain. They talk about fresh ingredients, gourmet preparations, and premium quality. What they don't mention is that their premium burger contains enough saturated fat to clog the arteries of a small village. The psychological manipulation here is subtle but effective. By calling it a monster burger, they've given you permission to indulge. It's like they're saying, we know this is crazy, but you're choosing to be crazy with us. It's a form of nutritional gaslighting. They're making you complicit in your own dietary destruction. And let's talk about the bottomless fries that come with it. Red Robin has built their entire brand around the idea that you can eat unlimited fries with your burger. So not only are you consuming a day's worth of saturated fat in your sandwich, But you're encouraged to add unlimited amounts of additional fat and sodium through their endless fry refills. The marketing imagery is particularly insidious. In their commercials and advertisements, you see happy families, laughing friends, people celebrating life while consuming these nutritional nightmares. They've associated cardiovascular destruction with joy, community, and celebration. It's brilliant marketing and terrible public health policy. But here's what really gets me about Red Robin. They know better. They have nutritionists on staff. They have access to the same health data we all do. They know that serving a burger with 38 grams of saturated fat is essentially serving a heart attack on a plate. And they do it anyway, because it's profitable. The portion size normalization is another psychological trick. When you see a monster burger, your brain doesn't think, this is 3 times larger than a burger should be. It thinks, this is what a burger looks like at Red Robin. They've shifted your baseline expectations so dramatically that consuming a day's worth of calories in one meal seems normal. And the price point? They charge premium prices for this nutritional disaster. You're paying extra for the privilege of consuming industrial quantities of saturated fat and sodium. It's like paying a premium to have someone slowly poison you over the course of 20 minutes. But here's the most insidious part. Red Robin markets itself as a family restaurant. They have kids' menus, high chairs, and birthday party packages. They're literally teaching the next generation that consuming massive quantities of saturated fat and sodium is not just acceptable, but celebratory. The cooking process makes it even worse. Because they're trying to cook such a massive burger, they often end up overcooking the outside while leaving the inside undercooked, which means they have to add more fat and salt to make it palatable. It's a vicious cycle of nutritional destruction. Number 4 is the Hardee's and Carl's Jr. Monster Burger. And this is where it gets terrifying. We're not just talking saturated fat and sodium anymore. We're talking trans fats, the worst fat you can put in your body. The numbers: 1,160 calories, 29 grams of saturated fat, 3.5 grams of trans fat, and 2,580 milligrams of sodium. That's not just unhealthy, it's reckless. The FDA has tried to eliminate trans fats entirely because there's no safe level of consumption. None. Just 2 grams a day raises heart disease risk by 23%. This burger has 75% more than that in one sitting. And the chains know exactly what they're doing. Trans fats are cheap, addictive, and profitable. That's why they're still using them in 2024, even though they're banned in the EU, and Denmark has outlawed them since 2003. The marketing makes it worse. They glorify excess, eat like you mean it, targeting young men and pushing the idea that bigger equals manlier. In reality, they're selling heart disease and cognitive decline disguised as masculinity. Here's the bottom line. The Monster Burger isn't just oversized. It's a calculated health hazard that would be illegal in many countries. And Hardee's and Carl's Jr. are charging you extra for the privilege of eating banned ingredients. Rounding out our top 5 is the Burger King Bacon King. And while it might seem less dangerous than the others on paper, don't let the numbers fool you. This burger represents everything wrong with fast food portion creep and sodium abuse. The stats: somewhere between 1,100 and 1,300 calories, depending on preparation, 31 to 48 grams of saturated fat, and 2,100 to 2,400 milligrams of sodium. Now, you might look at those ranges and think, well, at least it's not as bad as the others. But here's the thing. Even the low end of those ranges is still a nutritional disaster. What makes the Bacon King particularly insidious is how Burger King has normalized it. This isn't marketed as an extreme indulgence or a special occasion meal. It's just another option on the menu, sitting right next to the Whopper like it's a perfectly reasonable lunch choice. The sodium content is where this burger really shows its true colors. Even at the low end, 2,100 milligrams is nearly a full day's worth of sodium. At the high end, you're looking at more salt than you should consume in 24 hours, delivered in about 10 minutes of eating. But here's what Burger King doesn't want you to realize. The variability in those numbers isn't accidental. It's because different locations prepare the burger differently, use different amounts of sauce, and have different portion control standards. So when you order a Bacon King, you're literally playing nutritional roulette. You might get the low sodium version at 2,100 milligrams, or you might get the cardiac event special at 2,400 milligrams. The psychological trick here is the name. Bacon King sounds powerful, indulgent, maybe even a little rebellious. It doesn't sound like sodium bomb or arterial blockage special, which would be more accurate. They've made consuming dangerous amounts of sodium sound aspirational. And let's talk about the bacon itself. The amount of bacon on this burger is obscene. We're talking about enough processed meat to significantly increase your risk of colorectal cancer, on top of all the cardiovascular damage from the saturated fat and sodium. The marketing strategy is particularly effective because it targets people who think they're making a reasonable choice. Compared to some of the other monsters on this list, the Bacon King almost looks moderate. But moderate compared to a heart attack on a plate is still a cardiovascular disaster. So there you have it, the 5 most dangerous burgers in America. But here's the truth. These aren't accidents. They're the natural result of a food system built on profit, not health. We've been sold the idea that bigger is better. And now the average American eats 3,400 milligrams of sodium a day, half again what's recommended, and twice the saturated fat we should. We call it normal. It's not. I'm not saying never eat a burger. I'm saying be smart about it. Pick smaller portions. Choose places that own their nutrition facts. Make burgers an exception, not the rule. And here's my challenge. Read the labels, ask questions, and demand better. Because the only way this changes is if we stop paying for food that slowly destroys us. If this breakdown opened your eyes, hit like and subscribe for more exposés on what chains don't want you to know. Drop your local burger bombs in the comments. I'll investigate next. Remember, knowledge is only power if you use it.